everyone, today we're doing a colour along in this book. This is called Welcome to the Sunnyland, or Journey to the Sunnyland rather, and it is a Polish produced colouring book from Deco Made in Poland. So if you haven't got this book or you want to know a bit more about it, I'll leave the link in the description and you can have a look if you want to buy your own copy. It's a lovely little colouring book. Let's see, I'm going to do a proper review on it, but just for this, just for the purposes of this video, it's 8.5 by around 8.5 inches. So it's not like a huge colouring book. It's a bit more of a portable size, and it's really nice. The paper's very good, very thick, and yeah. So I thought we would do this. This page sort of called out to me from the moment that I saw it, and I think it's just beautiful. This cute little kind of elf pixie girl. And I love the way that her hair is, it's almost like it's made of reeds or made of grass or something. You can see it's been coiled up at the top here, and we've got the two butterflies who are sort of sat on top. So yeah, I don't know, I really liked the illustration. I thought it was very nice. So let's zoom you in a bit and we'll get started. I'm going to do the skin first. So I'm going to use my Prismacolors, because I have those here with me, and I think I'll start off this is like my sort of go-to skin tone. So I do have a lot of options for skin tones, but this is the one that I sort of know off by heart and I don't have to check which colours to use. So I start off with henna, which is PC 1031, and I just go around the areas of the face where there would be shading. And sometimes you can have semi-grayscale illustrations that will show you where to put the shade in. This one doesn't have an awful lot of that. There's a little bit around the eyes, slight bit on the clavicle, but I'm just sort of making it up as I go along for the most part. So we're just going to put some henna in all of the shaded areas. And I'm doing it very, very lightly. As you can see, there's barely any colour on the paper. I do have a tutorial for this skin tone as well on the channel, if you want to see it sort of more in depth. I'm just going to go underneath the bottom lip here where you'd naturally have that shadow. And also just above the top lip. And underneath the nostrils. And where else? Let's do the eyes. So just around the eyes here. So the crease of the eyelid. Just following that shading that the illustrator has put in there. And I always forget the ears. You can guarantee every single time I colour a face, I forget the ears. So I'm going to do those now while I think about it. Let's put a little bit of shade in here as well. And then this side, the same thing. So I'll do a little bit of shading just underneath the eyes as well. And also we want to define the nose a little bit. So I'm just going to sort of think about how wide or skinny I'd like the nose to be. And then just put in some very fine areas of shading so that it's not built up yet, but we've got the kind of areas that we're going to shade, and that would have naturally a bit more shading down the sides. So we'd also have a bit of shading underneath the hair. So I'm just going to do bits of it here and there. I don't want to do it underneath every single strand of hair, but I'm going to swap the side that I shade. So as you can see on this side, I was shading on the right of the hair, we get to the middle and there's barely any shading, and then as we get to this left side, we're just going to shade the left side of each section, if that makes sense. Then we'll do a bit down here as well. So it's all just planning and plotting the shading at the moment. There was nothing major going on. I'm just going to do that little bit of the clavicle. Bit down the side and going towards the point of the chin underneath on the neck. And then on the arms, we can just do a little bit of shading here on the crease. And that's kind of my basic shading for now. I might come back in and put something else in there, but we'll wait and we'll not go too far with the darkest colour. So the next colour is the peach shade, and I'm looking for a sharpener and I don't have one. I've left my electric sharpener in the living room, so let's see if I can use one of these. It is important, I find, when doing skin, that your pencils are as sharp as possible. And I know it's difficult with Prismacolor because they're so soft and crumbly that unless you use the very lightest of touches, that tip is going to break. So try and hold your pencil a little bit further back if you have that problem, and it might help you not put so much pressure on the tip. So all I'm doing now is I'm finding those areas that I just plotted out with the henna, and I'm going over the henna and I'm also expanding it a little bit. So I was very kind of pared back with where I put all the henna lines. With this peach, I'm now just bringing the colour out a little bit more into the face. So usually when I'm doing a face, I would bring in the cheekbones, and I'd make a sort of a slight hollow or a dip underneath the cheekbones just to sculpt the face a little bit. But this girl, she's so cute, chubby, and I want to kind of keep that roundness and that cherub kind of look to this illustration. So I'm not going to carve out any particular shaping in this illustration. Okay, so I've done all of the peach areas, and now we're going to move on to the light peach. So this is PC 927. I don't think I'll ever learn the numbers off by heart, but I know all of the colour names. So 927 light peach, and we're doing exactly the same thing again. So we're going from the areas of peach that we've just put down, and I'm using the side of the pencil tip as well, rather than the point. And that'll give us some really nice smooth areas of colour. So I'm just again expanding and slowly making my way into the central areas that are still white on the paper. So using round motions like this, sort of ovals. And just filling in the majority of the white on the paper. With my style of colouring, I do like to leave some, not white, but very light areas of the skin. It's just my style of colouring. It's not realistic particularly, because nobody has a pure white strip of highlight on their nose or their cheeks. But it's just my kind of cartoonish colouring style, I guess, that I like to leave that little bit of solid highlight. So again, just bringing this light peach colour so that we're covering almost all of the white of the paper, but we've still got lots of room to come back in with our darker colours and deepen up the blends. Now, if you don't want to leave those white highlights and you have the Luminance pencils, or at least the buff titanium, that is a really, really good pencil to use as your highlight blender. So I might get that one out after we've done all of our main shading and use that to fill in the white areas so that it looks just that little bit softer and not so harsh. Because there's not really a colour like that in Prismacolor. They also have, Luminance have the pink white, which is one of their newer colours, and that's really good as a very light hint of pink for skin. This is quite a peachy tone, obviously, so I'm not sure if that would work for this, but the buff titanium definitely has a peachy yellowish undertone, so that one will work for this particular skin tone. Don't forget the ears. I'm thinking about doing some mixed media on this page for the background, because obviously it is a blank background and there's nothing wrong with leaving it like that. That's what I would normally do. But I'm just thinking maybe some distress inks or neo colours or pastels or something else that we can put in the background just to give it a bit more interest and make it seem like a more complete illustration and page. I'll think about it when I cross that bridge. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave it there with the light peach. Now I'm going to come back in with the henna, but I don't want to go too far with it, so I'm just sort of battling with myself on whether to re-establish the henna again, which is what I would normally do. I would do a whole second layer of all of the colours, or whether to keep it this very subtle skin tone that doesn't have too much in the way of highlights and shadows, but just gives you that little hint. And I think that might actually work better for this particular illustration, with it being quite cartoonish. Yeah, let's try that. So I'll bring in the peach again, PC939, and just do a little bit more of a deeper layer of this colour. I don't know as if I want to, like I said, come back in with the henna again. I think we might end up with too deep of a skin tone, and I don't want to have any really harsh shadows and highlights on this. Like usually if it's an image of a grown woman that I'm colouring, I would define the cheekbones and things like that, but I'm just feeling at the moment that this one needs to be very soft. So I'm just going to go with that gut feeling and see how it turns out. This is not something I would usually do. Like I say, I would come back in with all of the colours. But let's just bring back in that peach and see how it looks. So I've done a slight little shaping of the nose, so it's got almost like a button nose. Again, just bring some of that down here as well. And underneath where her top would create a bit of shading and shadow underneath onto the skin, we'll have a bit of a darker area there. Okay, and then one more time in with the light peach, PC927, and again just going over the peach we've just put down to make sure we've got a nice beginning of a blend there. It is a little bit tedious. I'm trying to speed it up as much as I can. Bring some of that peach on this diagonal between the nostril and the chin so that we create this highlight of roundedness right on the apples of her cheeks. And again on the same, on the opposite side, same area. And anywhere else you think just needs a little bit more. Now let's pull out the buff titanium from the Luminance. Where is it? Here we go. Mine's very small. I use it quite a lot, so that's why. Let me just give it a quick sharpen. Okay. So this is number 801 from the Caran d'Ache Luminance pencils. And we're basically going to fill in all of the white areas. Like I said, usually I would leave a very harsh, well, I wouldn't say harsh, but a definite white highlight in all of the upper areas of the face. So the apples of the cheeks, the tip of the nose, and things like that. But I just want to make it that bit softer for this little girl. So I'm just going to very quickly and scrappily fill in all the areas that we left white, and hope this comes together at the end. It looks a little bit odd at the moment. Okay, so I filled in pretty much everywhere on her skin. Now, my next stage usually with this particular colour palette for skin would be to grab the grey lavender from the Prismacolors. That's this one. It's PC1026. And again, I'll just give it a quick sharpen. The grey lavender, I find, helps to desaturate a little bit of the harsh red from the henna. So what I would do is I would just very lightly go over the henna area. And I just find that it takes the redness out of it a little bit. And gives it a bit more of a shadow colour rather than a deep kind of brick red. So again, very lightly, just going over this. I'm wondering whether or not to try some blending solution on this and see what happens actually. Because I'm already deviating from how I would usually do skin, the routine of it. So I might as well try a bit of blending solution and see how that looks. Because obviously we've got a lot of the white speckle, the tooth from the paper still showing, which we don't want really, but the blending solution should help with that. Or we could use a blender pencil, but something's telling me to use blending solution and see, because we can always go back in after the blending solution. That's the good thing about it. So when you go over with a blender pencil, yes, you can sometimes go back over that and put more layers in, but usually you're using quite a hard pressure to sort of blend and burnish, and there's nowhere really for you left to go. Whereas if you paint on the blending solution, you've not got rid of the tooth of the paper, so you have a little bit more in the way of options. So I'm not sure whether you can tell a marked difference on camera or not of me adding the greyed lavender, but definitely to my eye, it just helps desaturate the redness a little bit. And it doesn't really matter much to me if it looks realistic or not at this point, because the subject matter that we're dealing with is some kind of elf or fairy. So it's a fantasy anyway, it's a fantasy subject matter. And that means we could have done her skin green if we wanted to, and it would still be really cool, and it would kind of match because we know she's got the spiky ears and the hair made out of grass or whatever it is. So I'm trying not to be such a perfectionist and worry about things looking proper. Okay. So I've gone over it, like I say, with a layer of greyed lavender, and we'll see how that works out. Let's grab our blending solution. Now I'm actually running low on this. I've got two jars of it, and they're both really, really low. I don't know if you can see, but I can't find this being sold anywhere anymore. So I'm probably going to have to get some Gamsol or some other odourless mineral spirits for it. But I'll just pop that to the side. Make sure I've got you in view, hopefully. And then I'll grab a paintbrush. So I will need... something quite thick. This one should do. This is a De Laroni Graduate. It's number 6. It looks a little bit like it might still have some paint or ink or something on it. So I'm just going to dip it in here and then do a quick swatch on some scrap paper to make sure that we've got all the colour out. Because the last thing we need is blue on our skin. Hopefully that works. I've given it a bit of a swatch. So I use this quite differently to most other people, and I have been told off for it plenty of times in the comments. People say use the very minimum amount that you can. A lot of them do it with a tortillon, so like a paper stump, and they barely ever double dip, so they don't go back in and pick up more. Whereas I use loads of the stuff because I just find it dries out very, very quickly and sort of evaporates, and I'm not really done with working the illustration at that point, so I use quite a bit of this and just make sure that it's breaking down those binders so that we've got a nice smooth colour and the tooth of the paper is erased, or at least it looks to be erased. So you'll see this kind of greasy mark on your paper when you use it, and you'll be able to see the other illustration on the other side coming through. But don't worry, when it evaporates and fully dries, it goes back to normal. So I'm just kind of working my way around all of the dark henna areas to make sure that they're smooth as they can be. Very light touch with the paintbrush as well. I'm not scrubbing the paper or anything. And just pop some on the ear. There we go. So again, I'm going to make this a very, very subtle skin tone. We're not going to have too much in the ways of harsh highlights and harsh shadows. And I think it will work. I hope it will. Underneath the eye here. I'm not sure whether the camera's picking this up. I've done this half of the face on purpose, just so that you can see the difference between the speckly tooth here and the blend here. So hopefully that shows up on camera. So just going over the lot again with a fresh coat. Like I say, if I'm using a paper stump, I usually tend to scrub too hard and then the pigments end up all over the place. So with a paintbrush, it's nice just to paint it on, and you can't really scrub properly with a paintbrush like this. So yeah, hopefully you can see the difference between the two sides so far. We'll start off here. Just work our way into those henna areas. And again, you see it goes dry really quickly. I'm probably using it wrong. In fact, I'm almost sure that I am, but if it works, it works. You know, you get people that throw paint at canvases and, you know, they make a lot of money off it. So I think art, it's just use the tools however you want to and not what, you know, is the generally accepted way of doing it. Yeah, as long as it works for what you're trying to achieve, then that's it. So you can see, yeah, you can, the illustration from underneath is showing through, and you've got this kind of, let me show you, this kind of greasy mark underneath, but that will all completely dry and disappear. So not to worry about that. Let's go on to the neck and chest area. At this stage, I start thinking about what colour to do the hair. Now, I think it's some kind of grass. It's what I'm getting from this, with it being sort of tied up at the top. It looks almost onionish, hard to describe, but I'm just thinking maybe we should do it in like some really mossy, foresty green tones. I don't know, we'll decide. Right, so I've kind of saturated all of the areas that have the colour on, and I can always go back in with the tip of the brush, and if there's any areas that I think are still a little bit too speckly or not quite blended enough, I'll just kind of work those, go over them. Don't know as if I did the eye. And then once you're kind of happy with where things are, you can leave it alone, let it dry, and see what the result looks like after. It might be the case that I want to come back in with the buff titanium and go over everything and make it super, super smooth, or I might just be happy to leave it kind of a little bit subtle and almost unfinished. We'll see, we will see. So I'm going to pop the blending solution away before I tip it everywhere, and yes, I have done that before. Okay, so the hair then, I'm thinking like kind of mossy green hair, not like a bright green, a vivid green, but almost like a dried grass kind of colour. So let's have a look, if I can find it. Let's have a look at my colour family chart and see the kind of greens that I mean. So I'm thinking kind of over here, lime peel marine, yeah, something like this, lime peel and marine green. I'm just wondering if I have any colours that are a bit lighter than lime peel in the same family. Here, these three are kind of a family on their own, and then we move to the lime peel. So I just wonder, let me have a look at the other charts that I've got and see if I can find anything a little bit lighter than that. No, not in the polychromos. What about the Holbein? No, that won't really work. Possibly willow green, but it's still not quite the right temperature for what I want. This is the Arrtx pencils, and they're very much like Prismas, so I doubt I'm going to find anything in there. This ginger root might work though. Let's see what the ginger root looks like in the Prismacolor. Yeah, that's definitely more of a brown tone in the Prismacolor, whereas in the Arrtx it's got green. Sorry about all the flapping around, but yeah, the Arrtx ginger root definitely has like a lighter lime peel version. That's why I've put it next to this one. So I think I might pull out an Arrtx ginger root as well as the lime peel and what's the other one that I said I was going to use? Lime peel and marine green. So let's see. Here's the marine and the lime peel. Let me just have one more check at that chart because I'm wondering if the moss green might actually look better with the lime peel. So if I just hide that one. No, I'm going to stick with the marine. It's a little bit brighter than the moss. And then I wanted the Arrtx ginger root, so I need to figure out which pencil case my Arrtxs are in. Is it this one? Oh no, hang on, they're all in the same one. Of course they are. Okay. So we're looking for ginger root, which is this one here. So it's Arrtx ginger root. I'm not sure if it has a number, 85079. And then we've got Prismacolor lime peel PC1, hang on, PC1005 and marine green PC988. So we'll give them a quick sharpen as well. Keep losing my sharpener. There we go. So just giving these a really quick sharpen and we'll get started. So I don't know whether you sort of think that this is grass that's making her hair or what it is, but I feel like this is the route that I want to go down with it. So hopefully it will turn out okay. Right, so we're all on screen with the hair. Fantastic. Let's start off with the marine green then. And we've got loads of shading on this hair, which is fantastic because we know exactly where to put our darkest colours. So we're going to start here right in the centre and we're going to cover all of this very dark grey shading with our marine green. And you may not be able to see much of the colour yet because of course we are going over some very dark print here, but it will definitely make a difference in the end result. So just going to very lightly flick. So you see with the skin I was making oval scumbling kind of motions. With hair I'm always flicking up or flicking down, and it just helps to keep that texture. So it's the skin's starting to dry now. Here's another good technique. You can use a clean finger while this is still drying just to go over and blend out some of the bits of skin that might not be so blended. You can do that and it does work. But back to the hair. Okay, so I think we've done all of our marine green areas now. Let's move on to the next colour up, which is lime peel. And we're going to do the same thing again. So I'm just flicking up from about halfway of where we put the marine green, so like about here. Just flicking up and flicking down, making sure that there's still room in between those top and bottom areas. There's still a white area that we can come back in with the ginger root as well. So we don't want to completely fill the area. We just want to, again, like with the skin, we start from the darkest and then we kind of move out toward the lightest. But I'm liking this colour choice so far for the hair. The only thing about the green is, because it's a complementary colour to the red in the skin will probably show up as more red. just to the eye, it's trick of the eye. So if we had gone for a very deep reddish hair colour, like a burgundy or something like that, this skin would actually look a lot paler and a lot less red because of the contrast. So the only thing about doing the green next to the reddish tones in the skin is that it's going to keep those reddish tones and it's not going to sort of negate them at all. But that's okay, because this is just a fun little colouring session. It is not Tony Hart, if you remember him. If you're from the UK, do you remember Tony Hart? It was kind of before my time, but I do remember he was still, or his programmes were still on TV when I was little. It's more, I think, my mum's kind of era. But he was an artist and he was absolutely fantastic. But we're not trying to create an incredible work of realism here. So I always like to give that little caveat and disclaimer when I'm doing my colouring, because I'm not purporting to be, you know, the be all and end all opinion and voice on how to colour. So it's just like how I do it, that's all. And if you like it, you can try and emulate it and further your skills. Right, so we're finished with the lime peel. Now let's go to our Arrtx Ginger Root and see how this looks. So I'll just try it on this bit of hair here. Oh yeah, it's pretty much a perfect lighter version of the lime peel. So that's fantastic. So we're not going to have a very harsh highlight, you know, a white strip that's between the hair. We're going to use this ginger root to make that just a little bit more subtle, but still keep the shine of the hair. So you don't have to be too careful with this one, because we're not trying to avoid colouring anything. So just go in there with your ginger root and have fun, really. Just go for it. Just colour everything you can see, everything that's been left. And you can also use your lightest colour as a bit of a blender. So I tend to do that, so I'll go over most of it and give it a bit of a blend. Now there will be some areas that you'll want to come back in with either your marine green or your lime peel, like this area here needs doing. But that's fine. We can come back in and we can decide afterwards whether we need to do that. And some of these strands that I've left on their own, they'll probably need a little bit more deeper shading too. As I said, if you want to come back in any of the areas with the marine green and the lime peel, you can do that. So I just want to do a little bit here. And maybe just a few more little strokes up through this rather large section of highlight. And I think we should have some lime peel, a bit more lime peel down here. And on these singular strands, like I say, we don't just want them to be ginger root on their own, so we'll add a little bit of lime peel to soften it up. The lime peel is also the warmest of the three, so if we want to make it look a little bit warmer, then adding more of this lime peel in will do that. Right, so now that we've completed the hair, I just want to have another look at the skin. In fact, why don't I zoom out so that you can have a little bit of a bigger picture of what's going on here. So I think the hair goes really, really nicely with both the type of illustration and, let me just move you out of the glare, because the glare, it's like you can't really see. I think it goes really well with the skin. Now there are obviously areas of the skin that aren't perfectly blended, and I'm just wondering now that the blending solution has dried, if we go back in with that buff titanium and just make it a little bit smoother. So let me zoom you back in. Alright, so with the buff titanium, I'm going to very lightly at first just go over some of the henna. Let's do one side of the face first, so let's do this right hand side and see how we think it looks. Okay, so I've done this half. If you just look at the face itself, this is where I have just done a layer of buff titanium, and then this face, this side of the face is obviously a lot rougher, but it also has more definition. So really it's up to you what you think looks best. I'm going to carry on obviously now that I've started and finish off kind of buffing this out, but you can see the difference between the kind of granular look on this side and then the softer look on this side. So up to you what you think looks best. Okay, so I've smoothed out the skin and now I'm just thinking of whether to give her a little bit of blush, just to give that rosy cheek kind of look. So I'm just looking at what colours I want to try and use. Let's have a look at the Deco Pink, which is 1014 in the Prismacolors. And again, just using the flat side of the pencil, let's just scumble on a very light layer of this and see how it looks. Now, sometimes I would actually go as far as to use the colour Raspberry, which is very deep pink, but I would only very, very slightly touch it to the skin. I don't think this particular illustration is going to need that, but I'm just going to just put a little bit of this pink on and see how I think that looks. Just here on the apple of her cheeks and across the cheekbone as well. And then the same from the other side, using the flat of the pencil and circular oval scumbling motions. I think that's nice. We've given her a little bit of colour in her cheeks, so to speak. And then just to make sure that that is blended back out with the skin, I'll just use the buff titanium sparingly on the edges of that pink. So it might not be so obvious to you on camera that we've put any shading in there, any blush in there, but I can see it and I think it just softens the look a little bit. I might just put a little bit of this Deco Pink on her eyelids here. So we now need to think about the colour of her eyes. But that kind of depends on what other colours are on the illustration. At the moment, we've only got green. So I think what we should do is figure out a colour for her top and possibly what we're going to do with the background, and then we can sort of finish off the face. I am just going to put a little line of the marine green on her eyebrows. There we go. As for the lips, obviously it's a young girl. I don't want to give her any lipstick or anything like that. So I think I will just come back in with the henna for the shadowed areas of the lips, very lightly. So it's always best, if you want to do natural lips, to use the colours that you've used in the skin. So I've got a little bit of henna there. I'm going to come with a bit of the Deco Pink and just buff that colour out a little bit. Let's just try a slight bit of the peach colour. I've just gone over the lines a little bit with the henna, so I'm going to try and push that back with the buff titanium. Back in with the peach. I think I'm just going to bring some clay rose in here as well. There's not much room on these lips for a great deal of blends and different colours, so just doing my best with the space that we've got. They're quite natural. Let's work on this top then. So I'm not entirely sure what colour to do that. Let's think. Maybe I'll do that on part 2. Let's make this part 1. So it's been just over an hour already, and I promise you I will finish this. I know what I'm like with colour alongs and parts and things. I always end up forgetting about them, but I'm leaving this on my desk and I'm going to come back to it later today, hopefully with a fresh mind, and we will do it on the next part. So I'm definitely going to be back and I hope that you've enjoyed what we've done so far. Do let me know in the comments, and if there's anything you would like to see on the background or on the butterflies, maybe we can use some gold paint or some stickles or anything. Just give me some ideas of whatever you think, and I'll see what I think on the next video. At least taking this little break will give us a chance to give me a chance to hear back from you and what you think so far. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you very soon for the second part.